Thank you, sir. So, with, as you just said, this is my guy. Been a fan for a very long time, and as such, it would have been hard for me to stay away from conversation about Tom Brady just because I knew that today the Brady detractors would have been out like the walking dead, right? And as expected, I succumbed to a few few discussion topics, but there was one topic in particular that I knew I wanted to save for tonight. So first of all, let's establish the basis of my final thought. As you mentioned, Ken, Tom Brady has officially announced his retirement from the National Football League after a 22-year career, which saw him end as a 7-time Super Bowl champion in 10 appearances, the most by any single player, and the all-time leader in passing yards, touchdown passes, and wins by a quarterback. He's top 5 in every major passing category and holds every major postseason record. But anyway, I ain't here to go through all of his stats and accolades. That's what Wikipedia is there for, right? Mm-hmm. What I'm here to do is to broach a topic that is a bit more opinionated and controversial, for want of a better word. For in my estimation, Tom Brady, on the day of his retirement, leaves his discipline as the GOAT of GOATs. And here's why. Now, let me preface this analysis by saying I'm referring to only the athlete legacy in the field of play, not the influence beyond the scope of the sport outside of that. Is just strictly what they've done in actually playing the sport, right? Mm-hmm. And also, let me add that I'm not saying that this coronation is static by any means. It can change. I'm saying at this point, there are other athletes that are still playing their respective sports who I do think have a chance to stake a claim as the GOAT of GOATs, but that can only be measured at the end of their careers. I'm not going to do that while they're still playing because we still need to see how these careers end. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm making reference to athletes who are active because we have to be able to look back at their careers and we don't know how they will end. Good. As I know there'll be some people that want to argue this. Anyhow, all of that being said, I will make mention of some athletes who have put their professional careers behind them. We know quite a number of names of athletes who are heralded as the GOATs of their discipline. In boxing, in the pugilistic arts, you have Ali and Floyd. Ali, God rest his soul, ended his career 56-5. But 3 of those 5 losses came in his last 4 bouts, right? And those were in his late 30s. Floyd finished a perfect 50-0, but we know there was much ado about him and his grumpier old man fight with Pacquiao that essentially took place way beyond each of their primes. And then the cash grab fight that he had with Conor McGregor. And then the fact that he's now still taking up more cash grabs with a YouTuber and having them end in ties, in draws, right? There's Michael Jordan, who, while he was a superstar player before he won his rings and had a dominating period of about a decade and won all of his rings in his 30s, and he won all of his rings in his 30s, but by the time he hit his late 30s, about 38, 39, 40s, and decided to suit up for the Washington Wizards, he was not great enough to lead that hapless Wizards franchise to winning records, nor to the playoffs in neither of his 2 seasons in the capital, right? This being 01, 02, 02, 03. Then, of course, there's Wayne Gretzky. 20 years in the NHL, winning 4 Stanley Cups. The thing is, though, that as great as Gretzky was, he didn't win any Stanley Cups in his 30s. Now, that's not necessarily a knock, but here's where I'm going with this. By the time he retired as a Ranger at the age of 38, he finished his last season with 62 points, 9 goals, and 52 assists. That total was actually the lowest in his career of any season with 60 games or more. There's still names of guys who retired on top, like Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian by a mile. Both of those guys finished their careers in, as I said, on top, on the apex. But in terms of winning, but Usain had a hamstring injury that essentially forced his hand into retirement. And then Phelps, winning until the age of 31, it was a remarkable feat for a swimmer, but not really unique because Dara Torres won 5 medals in Sydney 2000 at the age of 33. Right? And speaking of which, there are females, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Billie Jean King, and you could call some other names. But the fact of the matter is that Father Time caught up with every single name that I have called. right? And that is not a knock against any of them, because that's just what is always expected to happen when athletes stay in their discipline for an extremely long period of time. Not a knock. But this did not happen to Tom Brady. This man blatantly defied Father Time and even got better when he got better weapons. Ken, the man had a Hall of Fame career in his 40s. Let me break down some of the stats here real quick. 81 games, 60-21 record, 65.3 completion percentage, 22,938 passing yards, so just under 23,000, 168 touchdowns to 51 interceptions, 7.4 yards per attempt, 283 yards per game, 98.6 QB rating, 10 fourth quarter comebacks, 13 game-winning drives. This is in his 40s, for the 4 years that he played in his 40s. All of this is underpinned by a record-setting 505 passing yards in a Super Bowl loss. Do you remember that? Or loss to the Eagles, the past loss to the Eagles. The most in a single playoff game, followed by 2 Super Bowl wins, and then culminating in being the regular season leader in 2021-22 in yards and touchdown passes. Well, 2021 season, sorry. In yards and touchdown passes. He even sprinkled some pizzazz on for good measure by making his last game, his last official game in the playoffs against the Rams, a damn near comeback. He almost had it. Now, I know some people will try to discredit this argument by mentioning the system and the weapons he had around him late in his career at the Bucs. But let me counter it with this point. At no point in time was this man a passenger on a team. Yes, his greatness had to evolve over time, but there was never a point in time when a team had to carry him in the big moments, that is. Instead, it was him carrying the team down the field to put them in a position where they were able to get the points that they needed. And as is the case in every team sport, his team did not always win. They didn't win everything, but he was never the reason that his team lost. Like I said, there are other athletes still in the fray who could very well occupy the mantle of the GOAT of GOATs by the end of their careers. But as it stands now, as Tom Brady retires on the first day of February 2022, he retires as the GOAT of GOATs. So I'm wishing all the best to the GOAT of GOATs in his future endeavors. This man has put his everything into football for the bulk of his life, not just NFL career, but his life. And we know that now he has other ventures that he's going to get into. I'm happy that he was able to leave on his terms in the manner that he did and not as a shadow of himself. All the best, TB12, you've earned it.